Abraham in Elonei Mamre. Where is Elonei Mamre? Elonei Mamre is in Hebron. It's a special place in Hebron. The Unclis, one of the important commentaries on the Torah, says right away, B'meishrei Mamre. Meishrei means like the plains of Mamre. Although it's interesting, why is it called a plain? We know if you go to Hebron, you actually can see the site today, the ancient site, and it's on a mountaintop. But a mountain can also have a plains. As we know, mountains could have a nice long plain to them, although it's high elevation. Whatever it is, this is where God appears to Abraham. Why in Mamre? He's the one who gave the advice to Abraham to do the milah, to do the circumcision. Whatever it is, right away Abraham is sitting at the, it's a hot day, so he's sitting at the entrance of his tent to get some cool air. And he lifts his eyes up and he sees three men standing over him. And he runs to them from the entrance of his tent. He says right away, if I found favor in your eyes, he wants to, take a little bit of water, wash your feet. And here we see he's offering them a little bit of water to wash their feet and come under the tree. But that's what it says, the righteous say a little and they do a lot. Because of course he runs to his wife and they get bread and meat or whatever. But just saying, take a little bit of water, and then the next minute he's bringing out a whole beautiful spread. The question here I want to focus today is a little bit on understanding a couple of different commentaries of how to understand the verse. There's a question right away comes up here when we read this verse. What is the question? It says, Vayerah ilav Hashem be'elonei mamre. Right? God appears to Abraham in Elonei Mamre. And then, immediately after that, he's sitting by the tent, and then it goes right into the story where he sees the three angels, three people that are angels. So the question is, what happened? What's missing here? It should have said what happened when God appeared to Abraham, sort of missing. Then there's a very important piece that's missing in the verse. It just says that God appeared to Abraham, and this goes on to the next part. It doesn't explain what happened when God appeared to Abraham. And that's what all the commentaries are trying to answer here on this particular verse. And right away Rashi says, Levaker techoleh, to visit the sick. In order to understand Rashi, we'll explain a little bit. The Ramban, Nachmanides, explains that the fact that a beautiful mitzvah of circumcision was done. So this really connects us to the last week's portion, which ended where Abraham at 99 did the circumcision. The result of the circumcision was being able to have a revelation from Hashem, God appearing to Abraham. Now, this week's portion connects, that's why it says, Vayerah ilav, God appeared to him. It doesn't say Abraham, because we know it's connected to the last week's portion, so it doesn't have to go grammatically mention his name again. It automatically connects, and that's one of the proofs that Nachmanides proves that this connected to the reason of God's appearance here is because of the milah. As Abraham did a great mitzvah of eliminating or removing that husk, the foreskin that now opened up the channels of spiritual energy, he now is merits in a revelation by Hashem, in prophecy. And here we don't even see, it doesn't say what God said to him. And this is what the Ramban, Nachmanides explains. It's like receiving the Torah in Sinai, or like the tabernacle, that God's presence comes down. And it's an experience, just like at the splitting of the sea, it says that the maidservants saw more than the prophet Ezekiel, when the Red Sea was split. So it's a certain kind of, because of the great miracle that took place, there was a great revelation. And here, the great mitzvah, the great commandment that was done by Abraham, he experienced a prophetic thing. It doesn't say what the experience was all about, but it was the divine presence coming down because of, as a natural response, as a natural result of his fulfilling that wonderful mitzvah of milah. And that's how the key direction of Rashi and Nachmanides. The Radak of David Kimchi, one of the great commentaries, even before the Nachmanides time, he was probably lived 35 years after the Rambam, Maimonides. Again, we're talking about the 1100s and early 1200s. And David Kimchi comes and says, he follows the line of the Rambam, his contemporary, and he says that what was the actual appearance of God coming down over here? This was the next parts of the next verses to come. The three men that were seen, and the way they said that Sarah is going to have a child, and the whole story of Sodom going to have to be destroyed, and Abraham praying for them. All this is really the revelation. How can this be revelation? Well, the Radak and the Rambam, Maimonides say it wasn't that it actually happened. It was a vision that took place in a dream. When he sat at the entrance of his tent, he fell asleep. And this is what he dreamt. This whole thing he actually dreamt. It really didn't take place the way the Nachmanides says, but it actually took place inside a vision. And that was the prophecy that was reached. That was the explanation of the Radak and Maimonides, as opposed to Nachmanides and Rashi, who explained it as a natural occurrence. And again, the revelation was a different. It was like a quiet revelation. God coming to visit the sick. That was the revelation, just being there because of the mitzvah that was done. But not like Maimonides and the Radak, who explained it as it didn't really take place, the whole story with the angels, but it was a vision. It was a prophecy. Those are the two major directions. There's another direction of the Rashbam, the grandson of Rashi, who sort of combines both worlds. On one hand, he says that the experience here, that Abraham experienced, the prophetic experience, the revelation was the appearance of these angels, but they were real angels. Wasn't a dream. It really happened, but that is considered God appearing to him. But if they were angels, they weren't God. Why does it say God appeared to him? No, he says sometimes the word expression God appeared through angels, right? Just like we see in at the sneh, the burning bush. There was an angel, but the name, the four-letter name of God is used. So it's used in that way to say it's God. It's a godly angel. Whatever it is, those are the different directions of explaining this great question that comes up understanding the verse. Now, it's an important. Today we did something. Usually we talk about an idea or concept which we can actually take with us, right, for the week, or in our divine service here. Today we opened up with and trying to analyze, understanding how do we approach. We're studying Torah to try to understand the verses, what they mean, the simple meaning behind the verse. It's very important before we go on to the other layers of Torah of understanding, to see the different directions of understanding Torah on a simple way, because that's how it begins. First, understanding the simple meaning of the verse itself before we can go on from there. But after we have this down, and there are two different directions, I think we could take this concept of Nachmanides, who explains that by actually doing a mitzvah, by doing a commandment of Hashem, we can actually merit in a revelation, which is really very special, really an important thing to stress and understand. That in our lives there are so many things we do. We spend our lives doing so many things that are mundane, basic things for our lives, but sometimes we don't realize and how important we take for granted how important doing a commandment is. Doing a commandment of Hashem, whether we put on tefillin in the morning, or we visit a sick person, right, or we do a kind thing, give charity, all these kind of things that we do. Sometimes we do it almost as a habitual even. Okay, we're used to it. We do it all the time. We know it's the right thing, but we get into a mode of doing things because, we know we're the right, but we sometimes lose the how do we say, the fire and the flame when you want to do something through enthusiasm. And realizing, wow, we're doing something very, very important. We're following Hashem's word. You're doing something so important. And here we realize that I think this is a message for all commandments. When a person does something with really devotion and mesiut nefesh, right, giving over himself, endlessly giving over himself to God, himself over to Hashem, to do what's right with this enthusiasm, we have to realize that we can really bring down a revelation. We actually connect spiritually and feel the presence of Hashem. And that's really this kind of appearance, and God appearing to Abraham. When you do something with all your heart and soul and truly want to fulfill Hashem's word, person is zoche, he merits in a very special spiritual level. And that's what we take this message with us to the end and realize how important it is, and we approach and we do every mitzvah with this tremendous enthusiasm. That's a very, very important lesson I think we can learn from here. And then we've gone the other direction of the way the Radak and the Rambam explain it. They explain it again that this was a vision of what didn't take place. Of course, this is a very interesting way of approaching the Torah when we're referring to angels, because the Rambam Maimonides says this concept regarding almost all prophecies, that in the Bible, every time in the Bible refers to an angel, it's really a prophetic kind of level. And it's a different direction completely than what we saw here with the Ramban. And we were sitting at the Shabbat table, my family, and my daughter said, "What's going on here, Obama? Either this one is true or that one is true. What's going on? How can they both be correct?" And I told her right now, we have to realize, I told her we had this conversation, it's an important conversation, is that the Torah sometimes, unpurposely, will leave things to be explained in different directions. It's opened, because it says, brought down many times in our tradition, our teachings, there are 70 panim la Torah, there are 70 facets of explaining the Torah. When it comes to Jewish law, there's one way, and we have to rule, and if we have to rule, the majority wins, and that's the explanation. But here you can say, okay, the majority of commentaries explain one way. No, we don't have to accept that one way. We can go for even a minority of commentaries explaining something a certain way. The most important thing is not only to understand the pshat, which we really must begin with that, but to try to take this to as an approach of, of self-improvement, of self-reflection, of self-betterment, to better ourselves spiritually, in spiritual growth. Take the message that we learn from the different commentaries to try to apply it, to apply this to our lives and make a change. And it's very easy. I mentioned before how the Nachmanides concept of how a mitzvah could bring about a divine prophecy is a tremendous thing. But here, how do we actually apply this lesson of the Rambam and Radak? Okay, if we say it was a spiritual thing, but what happened? But even if we explain it as a spiritual thing, I don't think, it doesn't really contradict what Nachmanides taught us. That right after doing that amazing mitzvah, here Avram Avinu, we can see right here, was merited in a spiritual, a spiritual dream and a spiritual experience. And we see how he merited, he's going to have a child now after this. So how his whole life changed because of this, of the milah, because of the mitzvah of the circumcision. It changed his entire life. So really, we can explain on the same line. Again, the spiritual effect this has on us. Doing a mitzvah can be explained in both ways, the same way. It actually resulted also in this spiritual level, another spiritual level. Abraham was able to have a dream and have a prophecy in that form, right? And so I don't think that doesn't really argue with Nachmanides in any way. The difference is, of course, how to explain the verse, but the fact that a mitzvah can lead to a spiritual enlightenment, a spiritual achievement, a prophecy, both commentaries agree with 100%. And, well, anyway, with this in mind, let us take it this week when we do our commandments, we follow our mitzvot, the 613 commandments we must do, and every commandment we must do in this world, let's do it with enthusiasm, and we will merit, God willing, and can making ourselves closer, much closer to Hashem, in a closer relationship. We do something with love to Hashem. Hashem will shine upon us much more. And we really need this. We need it right now. What's going on in Israel is absolute insanity. They're rioting over the place. It's really very, very difficult, very, very serious situation. And all the more so we have to be strong and do more and more commandments with love for Hashem. Hashem should reveal ourselves and shine His light upon us. Amen, amen, as we say. Jerusalem is waiting to be rebuilt. Our temple is waiting to be rebuilt. We need it right now, very badly. This is really... Give up! The time has come. Anyway, have a wonderful week. Love and miss you all. Shavua Tov. Bye-bye.